Suppose the Father should have come to you and said, I've chosen you to be the one through whom I am going to redeem the world, through whom I will defeat Satan and evil and all the sin in the world. And I leave the way to do it up to you. You choose the plan. You make up a scheme and how you're going to go about doing it, and I will give you every gift necessary to carry that out. Well, what would you have decided to do? How would you go about redeeming the world and defeating Satan? I'm sure a lot of people right away would say, well, we'll get an army of angels and we'll fight against him, destroy him, and throw him down into the netherworld forever. And this way we'll just defeat him that way. And that might make great sense to us. And ultimately, that's what the Lord promises to do on the last day when he returns in glory. Satan will be finally thrown down, to be completely and totally chained into the powers of hell for all eternity. But he chose a different way when he sent his own son to redeem him. A way that was not just something done by the angels, but something in which we cooperate. He wanted to draw us into himself in defeating the devil. And he defeated Satan by using his own weapons against him. Of course, sin and evil are all Satan's weapons. And his final weapon, his trump card, is death. And you and I, no matter how good we may try to be on earth, could never avoid death. No matter how good we were, when our life was over, we would be dragged down into his kingdom and enchained there for eternity. And God decided to save us from Satan by rendering all of his weapons powerless. And, of course, by becoming man, he was able to do something he couldn't do as God. And that was, being immortal, now he could die. And when Satan saw that, he must have rejoiced. He must have said, this is wonderful. God's made a great mistake. Like somebody playing chess who all of a sudden made a fatal move, and now I can lead right to checkmate. And he says, he's become man. Now all I have to do is get him killed, and I will have my victory over God. And he found it childishly easy to get Judas Iscariot to betray him, to hand him over to his enemies, and for the chief priest to accuse him of blasphemy and accuse him of being the devil himself, confusing the two, and then handing him over to the Romans and getting Pontius Pilate to buckle under their pressure and hand him over to be crucified. And when Jesus hung there dead on the cross, Satan must have rejoiced and just looked at him and laughed and said, look at yourself. You call yourself a God. You call yourself loving. You came here onto this earth telling them how much you love them and you want them to join you in your kingdom. And how did they treat you? They rejected you. They confused you with me, and they handed you over to their enemies, and they had you put to death. You think you're a great loving God? Well, I think you're pathetic. And I have finally won the victory over you. You are dead, God, and now you are in my kingdom. And he couldn't have been more mistaken, because he didn't realize that in bringing Jesus, God himself, into his kingdom, he brought in the one person, if you can imagine, who had the keys to all the locks, all the shackles of everyone there, and the great door that was holding everyone there. And by coming into the kingdom, imagine him letting loose everybody's shackles and opening the big door. And when he rose from the dead, now death has been turned around. No longer is death for us the entrance into condemnation, but the entrance to salvation, our entrance to heaven. It's as if Satan shot a gun and Jesus had the bullet stop in midair and turn around and come back and strike Satan. He defeated him with his own weapon. And now death is no longer Satan's trump card, but our triumph. And at our baptism, of course, we inherit the resurrection of Christ, and we are told that if we follow the Lord faithfully, we will enter heaven with him and enter into his glory. And that's what we'll be celebrating beginning next week and Easter Sunday, the wonderful sacrifice that Jesus offered on the cross to free us from our sins. And he let Satan do everything to him. He didn't just go through a simple painless death, as he could have done and it would have worked. But no, he deliberately chose to let Satan throw everything he had, his entire arsenal of pain at him. So all of the pain of crucifixion, that when you read about the suffering that someone would endure through that, it's just unfathomable, the pain that he went through. In addition to the physical pain of that and the crowning of thorns and that horrible scourging and the carrying of the cross and all that, there was the jeering by the crowds and the people, who mocked him and said, hey, he saved others, why can't he save himself? Come down off that cross and now we'll believe in you. And the Roman soldiers who were cruel to him, such a gamut of evil was thrown at Jesus on that day, and he deliberately let them do it so that Satan could throw his worst at him. He would take it all on his shoulders, destroy it, and rise again. And in doing that, he shows us that just as he carried his cross and had to suffer so as to rise again, you and I have to do the same thing. He calls us to participate with him in defeating the devil, not by keeping the pain away from us, but by helping us destroy it in its own power. Remember, pain and suffering and all the evil in the world, God didn't cause them. Satan caused them. And if God were just to come and wave his hand and take away all of our pain, well, we win by forfeit. It's nice to say that God saved us from our sins, but what merit would we have in that? No, the Lord has desired that even we would share with him in defeating Satan, that we be his co-workers, his partners with him. And so when evil comes our way in the world, the Lord does not always stop it from hitting us. I'm sure sometimes he does if he feels something is just too much for us to deal with. But other times, he gives us the strength to carry it. And remember that Satan brings evil into our lives, trying to get us away from God, trying to get us to blame God for the evil so that we can curse God and he can just reel us in. And some people, it's so easy. They stub their toe and they get angry at God, and Satan goes, boy, that was easy. But when we endure tremendous pain and suffering and still, rather than cursing God, turn to God and say, Lord, help me through this. Help me carry my cross. That's how we defeat Satan with his own weapons. Because the things that he brought to turn us away from God, we only allow to push us further into God's embrace, if we do so. Sadly, many people don't. Many people only get angry at God and throw a pity party and woe is me for the things that happen. And they don't let God heal them and comfort them and see them through. But other people do. Let me tell you the story of two women many years ago I used to bring communion to on a regular basis. And the one woman I went in, every time you'd see her, she was the litany of woe. How you doing? Oh, terrible, Father. I've got arthritis. The pain is killing me. My knees hurt. My elbows hurt. Why did God do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? And I tried to tell her, I said, God is not punishing you by giving you arthritis. I said, it comes from our fallen world. You got arthritis because you got older. And sometimes older people get arthritis, just like teenagers get pimples. God is not punishing them. It just comes with the age. So endure them and just turn to God and say, Lord, help me to use these sufferings as penance for my own sins, the sins of other people, the souls in purgatory, and ask him to help you to carry this cross and help you survive through it. But there was no consoling her. The message would never get through. And week after week when I'd visit her, it was the same litany. Immediately after leaving her, I would go and see another woman. And this woman was in pain also. She needed a double hip replacement. And she was in constant pain. But she had a very different approach. She says to me, she goes, well, Father, she goes, if I have to endure this pain, I'm going to make something good come of it. And I offer it for the souls in purgatory to free them from their sins. And so every week after I would visit the first woman and she would moan and whine and complain, I'd go to the other woman and say, well, how are you today? And she says, well, Father, I got a lot more people out of purgatory this week. And I said, that's the attitude. That's what the Lord wants us to do. Endure, embrace the pain, and turn to him and say, Lord, help me here. And doesn't that totally annoy and frustrate the devil, who could say, especially of the second woman, I brought all this pain into her life, hoping that it would make her curse God, and then I could rein her into my kingdom. And instead, she took all of the pain that I brought and only made it bring her further into his embrace. So she took my weapons and used them to come further to God. And it completely destroys the devil with his own weapons. And that's what the Lord challenges us to do. As he endured his cross, he tells us to endure ours. Yes, it will be painful at times, but like Simon of Cyrene was there to help Jesus carry his cross, he will be there for us, helping us each and every step of the way. And there will be people such as Mary Magdalene, St. John, and the Blessed Mother standing at the foot of the cross, encouraging us all the way. But when we see how we do that, we realize that that is the wiser way to defeat the devil. Not by the Lord taking all the pain away, but giving us the strength to endure it all and defeat the devil. Sometimes we hear people say that, faith is this big, blinder that people put up, this wall they hide behind to ignore, shield themselves from all the evil in the world. Quite the contrary. Faith in God is not a blind we put up, but rather it's a way of taking the bull by the horns, of going to him and saying, come on, Satan, give me your worst, give me your best shot. I can take it because I've got Christ with me and he's more powerful than you. And no matter what you bring, no matter how painful it will be, I will be able to endure it and Christ will see me through and we will triumph through it. And some of you I know have endured tremendous suffering in your life. And if not yourself, I'm sure you've seen other people that you look at them and say, how did you do that? You endured such a horrible, painful moment in your life. And instead of cursing God and getting angry, you turned to God and he gave you the strength to get through that. How did you do it? And we will be an inspiration to them. And so, my friends, the Lord reminds us today that if we wish salvation in his kingdom, if we wish to destroy the power of the devil, then it's okay to pray, Lord, if it be possible, let this cup pass me by, as Jesus did in his agony in the garden. But if the answer comes back from the Lord, no, I want you to carry this because you're going to defeat the devil through this, then turn to him and say, okay, Lord, then strengthen me. Be there at my side each and every moment, because together we can do this. We can defeat the devil, and I will turn all of his evil weapons to destroy him rather than to destroy me. And I will use the cross that you have given to draw me into you, so that when you are lifted up from the earth, you will draw all people to yourself, and I will be one among them that has been drawn to you on your cross and is now will be drawn to you in salvation in your kingdom. May Jesus Christ be praised, now and forever.